What's good, y'all? It's your boy Cold Blooded, and we back with another one. By now, I'm sure everybody's aware that the dust has settled from Vegas, and while there, we were able to have a roundtable discussion with the one and only Ash Habib. As some of you may already know, we're dropping videos with the questions that we asked him individually so that it doesn't take from each other's content. I personally only chimed in twice, but I felt like the 2 times that I did, I really stuck the landing. Unfortunately, one of those engagements with him was not caught on film, but it was in regards to the topic of desync, and it actually closed our roundtable conversation. So that brings me here. A video about desync, where I don't know if I'm helping the community, still sitting here active, or myself. Hell, maybe all of the above. But in order to do that, we gotta go back a little bit. Yes, sir. For my console guys that don't know what they're looking at, this is one of the early access builds of the game right here. I found it on my old hard drive. There's so much about this build that I love. Every bit of it sold the game to me. But unfortunately, everything that I loved about it is what created desync. And we're gonna talk about that. So one of the things that I struggled with the most when making this video was trying to figure out the order to put everything in. And I thought the best way to do this would be to pretty much ask you guys the same question that I asked Ash that closed the conversation. What I asked Ash was if he was familiar with the development studio, Embark Studios. To which Ash answered no. The reason that was relevant is because he had mentioned to us that and this is something I told him verbatim, I said, you mentioned you reached out to EA, you reached out to 2K Sports, and that makes sense because they make sports titles. EA specifically is still involved in the combat sports genre. But you have a game that revolved around dynamism with your physics engine, and there are no multiplayer games on the market with the exception of one that uses dynamic-based physics. That game being a game by Embark Studios called The Finals. Now, this is a game that I am very familiar with. As you'll see in my gameplay footage here, I play a lot of this game. For anybody who's curious about it, I highly recommend you play it. It's my favorite shooter on the market. Shameful plug. I've been a top 500 player in this game for 3 seasons in a row now. I cannot say enough great things about this game. I just love it. But it revolves around dynamism, and when I say dynamism, I mean that everything physics-based about this game, the map destruction, the way the level gets leveled, literally, it's all physics-based, and it's dynamic. So it's never going to be the same way twice, pretty much. It's always a different result when things just get destroyed around you. That's the equivalent to what Undisputed had going on with their punches for the most part. The punch mechanics and the hitboxes and so on and so forth. Everything was physics-based, even down to the movement, even to the fighter's trunks. Everything was physics-based. And that therein lied the problem, because Undisputed is not on a dedicated server, nor is it on a gaming engine that supports the physics portion of the game on a dedicated server. It just muddied the waters so much, and I'm gonna try my best to explain it to you guys as best I can so you guys understand desync, why desync is what it is, how desync works, and maybe Undisputed can start doing what they gotta do to get in the right track. Now, I'd be lying to you guys if I said I knew all along what the issue was. Honestly, it wasn't until this post right here that the wheels started to spin, and this actually was articulated really well. Although a lot of people were up in arms about it, I read this and I knew immediately what was going on behind the scenes. So originally they blamed everything on the console's inability to run the game the way they would like it to. And I would argue that's just a developer issue, right? That's their inability to optimize the game to its fullest. And to their credit, I think they've done a good job at that since then. If you see, I'll run the 2 games side by side, early access versus current build, and you can look at the graphic fidelity of the games, see which one looks the best, see which one runs the best, and I'll have both the resources up as well. Now, obviously, you can argue that the the current version of the game just looks so much better. But I'm telling you, it does feel better to move, but ultimately when you're playing the game, I promise you, the hit reaction, the hit detection, everything that revolved around the physics, it all just felt so much better on the early access version of the game, which by the way was poorly optimized. As you see, it's running it, it's using 5 gigabytes of memory, whereas the current version of the game, that by all accounts looks a lot better, is using 3 gigabytes of memory, but it's far less intensive because it's not so heavily physics based anymore. And so that led me on a rabbit hole of research and just trying to find out what is going on behind the scenes here. Why did they have to dumb down the physics in order to make the game work? And how is that adding desync so heavily? And then it really just dawned on me during the early access version of the game, if you guys remember, you kind of had to be in parsec with somebody in order to have a good fight. Otherwise, you and your opponent saw 2 entirely different fights, literally from the moment the bell rang. And it literally starts from like the simplest thing. So look at Fury's trunks in the old footage, right? It's constantly waving, it's constantly moving, versus his trunks now, they're static. The reason that matters is because when you have a dynamic, quote unquote dynamic, and forgive me on the spam, y'all, I wanted to show y'all the arm fatigue that they had implemented. But yeah, when you have a dynamic physics-based engine, the dynamism means that it's never going to be the same. And the problem is when your physics are client-side, we're going to see 2 different things, right? So client-side means your room versus another person's room. I tried to describe this previously with a analogy about throwing paper towel in the air. If I throw a paper towel in the air in my room and you throw one in your room, they're going to float around, wave around the air, and then they're going to hit the ground. The pattern that the paper towel takes to hit the ground is going to be different for you than me. It's never going to be the same thing twice. I don't know what pattern your paper towel dropped at, nor do you know mine, unless we're in the same room. In order to bridge that, you need a dedicated server. The dedicated server acts as us being in the same room and seeing the pattern that everything drops at. Problem is, Unity Engine does not have a way to dedicate the dynamic physics. And so as a peer-to-peer game, we're always going to be in different rooms technically. So anything that is physics-based, we're never going to see our version of what's happening on the screen. So technically, we're having a completely different experience the moment the bell rings, because the moment you take your first step and I take my first step and those trunks start waving and manipulating the physics, my trunks are waving at a different pattern than yours are on your machine. And I explained that to Ash and he agreed 100%, which is why I thought it was important that I bring up Embark Studios, because that's a situation that they don't have. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they are using Unreal Engine. So I'm going to cut to a video that I recorded yesterday, showing somebody online who's using Unreal Engine and showing the same issue that I'm talking about and how Unreal Engine is used to fix that issue. All right, so real fast, check this out, y'all. I'm gonna try to make this real fast. So this is Unreal Engine 5, right? But what he's doing here, he's gonna manipulate it so that it acts the way the Unity engine acts, pretty much, for Undisputed.
2 players, and the net mode is either listen client or as client.
So he's got it set for 2 players and he's got it set for client side. The reason that is important is because what it's gonna do is it's gonna mimic a dynamic physics-based engine on a peer-to-peer network, which is what Undisputed used to have, and in certain aspects it still does have dynamic physics. Dynamic physics is very important because dynamic means that the physics are not always the same. They can be different every time.
I can now press play and 2 windows will open. Okay,
so imagine the picture-in-picture on the left as a different person, and then picture-in-picture obviously, and then the big screen is the other client. So that's peer-to-peer.
Essentially, one viewport is the server, which is the big one, and this little one is the client. Okay?
As he just explained.
Okay, so if I go here and start to push,
so for the sake of the argument of Undisputed, we're going to act like that box is a punch, right? So that box is the arm. In Undisputed, the physics are the character model, the body, the arms, the joints, so on and so forth. So because that's the blue box is what's being tested here for physics, we're gonna act like that is a character's arms. That's a punch, pretty much. And then the character models are still the characters.
You will see, oh, well, the physics is automatically replicated. Well, not if I.
So right now everything is moving seamlessly. This is what we expect.
Start to kind of mess with it. You will see in.
Now, as he begins to manipulate the object more, or in Undisputed's case, as you begin to throw more and more punches, the dynamicism, if that's even a word, the dynamic of the physics begin to alter.
Will become.
So now you see the box being manipulated. The box just spun. That's not going to be the same spin per each client. That's something that I'm going to see that somebody else might have something different for on their client side.
So I just have to play a bit, but you can see already that there's.
So perfect example.
Off, and there's some jitteriness.
Boom. So he landed. He landed. The box moved.
Some jitteriness.
On the top left, watch him land. Watch the box move.
Jitteriness because the server. Some jitter.
But it didn't move on the big screen.
Because the server is trying to correct. But
see that the box is moving, but it's not moving on the main screen. So imagine these are punches. I'm being ghost punched right now.
But if
the client is seeing punches that I'm not seeing. So now that desync has occurred, look at what happens. Look at the client screen. Watch the small screen. He's pretty much on top of the box, right? But on the big screen on the server side, he's nowhere near the box. This is a ghost punch. This is the punch you will not see. Now we're completely desynced. So if I am on the client side on the left and I am right up on him, on my screen, I'm landing punches, but on his screen, I'm probably nowhere near him. And he's wondering what he's getting hit by.
Those things are.
Look at that. He's nowhere near the box, but he's on the box.
Okay, there we go. You can see that.
Desync. Now watch this.
It's not in the same position, right?
It gets worse.
Is here, in the server is.
The box
Like,
isn't even anywhere near him anymore on the client side, but it never moved on the server side. So in actuality, this is just a one big giant ghost punch. I done got knocked out.
Over here.
The reason they want to switch to Unreal Engine is because Unreal Engine has this.
Everything is just broken. So how can we fix this? Well, with Unreal Engine, it is super easy. The only thing we need to do is go up into the actor, go to class defaults and search for replicates. Okay. So we want to enable replicate so the whole actor is replicated in the network, and also on top of that, replicate the movement itself. If we now compile and save and press play and expand this, you will see that the cube will always be where it is. It doesn't matter if I try to,
So this is the benefit to a dedicated server right here. Unreal Engine has things in play for games that have a heavy emphasis on physics. They have things in play, as you see, that makes it easy to do these things and have synchronization across both screens.
Unbug it or whatever I want, it will always be there and it will always correct the player. Now you experience maybe some jitteriness. That's because the server will have authority over the client.
Exactly. So you're gonna probably experience some frame dropping, some rubber banding, some locking up, which is pretty much the server trying to put the client on par with with everybody else and get everybody in sync. In order to eliminate that, you have to have a dedicated server. So them just switching to Unreal Engine isn't going to fix the problem. It's going to help synchronize everything, but you're going to create a whole other bunch of problems with rubber banding and things like that if you don't actually have a dedicated server for the rest of the product. The reason being is there's a lot of bandwidth being used. So with a game like Undisputed, right now they're just using they're just moving one object. With a game like Undisputed, where that dynamic physics are going to be used all the time, assuming they return to what they had in early access, you're throwing hundreds of punches, right? You're making contact points hundreds of times around. That's a lot of bandwidth. That's a lot of information, a lot of physics-based information that's being transferred at all times. In order to make sure that that's not creating rubber banding issues, frame rate drops, and things like that to synchronize across the screens, you have to have a dedicated server. So they still have to implement a dedicated server, even when they switch to Unreal Engine.
Client, and maybe the client has a bit of lag because the client, the server, as you can see, also controls the physics and everything. So there's a plugin to smooth things.
As he just said, otherwise you have lag. It's funny, I'm trying to break this shit down, but he's just repeating after me anyway. I probably should have just watched it in full, or just let the video play. But it shows you that I understand what's going on. Now, obviously, we are aware that Steel City has been hiring for people who are privy to the Unreal Engine for some time now. I think if you go to the website right now, you still see jobs listed for expertise with the Unreal Engine. If nothing else, that tells me that they know full well what the issue is, how to fix it. And I do believe in the next Undisputed, they are going to cook, because I would love the level of polish that they have attempted in the current version of the game with these level of physics right here. Man, I miss this. I miss being able to do these little things right here, like put myself into a shoulder roll position and all that good stuff. Low-key, the game looked a little better too in certain spots. But in order to fix the issue that we're having with the game now, you would have to incorporate completely canned animations. And there's so many little things that are revolve around the physics that completely break the game right now. So, for example, the loose footwork. So, as you guys know, there's an axis that you're on in the game right now. When you go into loose footwork, it takes you off of that axis, so it allows you to get weird angles on your opponent. When you get those weird angles on your opponent, every punch they throw is dependent. The way it's tracking is dependent on the physics. So it's never going to track the same, right? So that creates desync. So the moment somebody goes into loose footwork, you're getting tracking issues, you're getting desync. The moment somebody gets rocked and they go into that slow walk animation, that also breaks the access. That's also creating desync, because it forces your character to throw punches that aren't canned animations anymore. I think the most generic animations you get in the game are the guys with the generic punch sets. Look how the arms got trapped right there. Like, we can't do that anymore. The most generic punches in the game, those animations are gonna net you the cleanest results. Once you start getting fighters with their likeness and things like that, it really muddies the waters. You just need canned animations throughout, or you need exactly what I talked about earlier. And they are making arrangements to do that, as we already know. We've known that for over a year now. So I think they're gonna cook on the next one. Steel City, you welcome, because you guys have not been transparent and letting anybody know exactly what the issue is on a technical level, and I've done that for you. So if you made it this far, thank you. And I will leave you with this. This is the first and only real question I had for Ash, and it wasn't even a question. It was a statement, because he asked us what we don't like about the game. I told him what I don't like about it, and I told him how I think they could actually fix it to also slow the game down a bit, and change the ebb and flow of the game and get it feeling more simulated. You can, I'll show you his reaction as well. This is the first time I saw him stumped, honestly. He didn't give me a long-winded response. He just kind of like took it in, paused, and let it process for a little bit. Right now is probably the overall ebb and flow of getting a real fight is skewed right now because of the blocking. The blocking is too strong. Nobody should just be able to hold R2 and be able to defend off everything. I think if you really want to capture the essence of boxing and get the ebb and flow proper, the moment somebody hits R2, that block meter should be depleted. There should be a penalty for holding it, so that they have to let go of it often, so that people can work on the actual nuances of the sport more often. Like, that's just an issue. Or make the feint significant. If they're holding the block, I should be able to feint, trick the computer so that I can open the block up and get other things going on. So right now, the feint has an insignificance in that aspect because the block is so strong. Correct. And that's my biggest gripe with the game, is the block.
Okay. No, it's definitely a valid shout. I think blocks being an issue, I think in a number of updates, where we've either gone too far in terms of the block health depleting, to the point where there's been it was probably a bug more rather than balancing, where you just could not block Deontay Wilder's punch, right? So yeah, I think it's definitely a valid shout.
Is it off?
Yeah.
This is my